this is Miss Litton. This is my wonderful Period 1 AP Bio class. Say hi. Hi. You're so excited. This entire notebook presentation contains mostly chapter 24, but a little bit here at the beginning of chapter 23. Chapter 23, the first one, focuses on plant evolution and diversity. We're not needing to, for the AP exam, know all the different phyla for your exam. So we're just going to focus in this part on plant evolution. So here is your first question. No, I'm not even going to ask you that. Skipping. And thank you. Hi, Jake Freeman. So if you go at the very top, ancestry and features of land plants. Plants are multicellular, photosynthetic eukaryotes whose evolution is marked by adaptation to a land existence. Adaptation to a land existence. It is hypothesized that they evolved from green algae more than 500 million years ago. And plants have enabled other life forms to survive on land. So they're surviving, and their survival enables other organisms to live. They supply the earth with what? Oxygen, good. And are the ultimate provider of most of the food that we eat, yeah. They supply oxygen, are the ultimate provider of most of the food eaten and absorbed by animals and fungi. All right, so moving on to land has both benefits and challenges. The advantages are you have increased amount of, any guesses? Sunlight, more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than in water. Soils are rich in nutrients. And initially, there would be fewer predators. Initially, fewer predators. Now, obviously, as as more life forms evolved on Earth, then you would have more predators, more pathogens to them. The challenges is lack of water, because when plants were in water, they had all the water they needed. But now they're on land, they don't have as much, so they have to have adaptations that enable them to gain water. And what adaptation did they have that allowed them to get water? Roots, good. And then as a result, they run the risk of desiccating, of drying out. And you've seen before seaweed on the beach. If you pick up the seaweed and go, stand seaweed, what does it do? Falls. There's no structural support. So they had to develop secondarily thickened walls to hold them upright. The purpose of being upright is to have more of the plant body be exposed to what? Sun, exactly. Okay, so you have advantages and challenges. For plant categorization, ooh, what is that? We know what that is. What is that? That is a cladogram. All right, and so for your plant categorization, you use molecular and morphological information. The categories are in order of evolution from algae. In order of evolution from algae. So your first land plants did not have vascular tissues, things like xylem and phloem. They were non-vascular. That would be like bryophytes in the moss. Then seedless vascular you have, and then vascular seed plants. If we go on to the adaptation to land, I would like the youngest bio buddy to explain this cladogram. Go ahead, youngest bio buddy. Okay, and oldest bio buddy, I just have another one for you. You should have no trouble explaining this. Go ahead, oldest bio buddy. How is this cladogram different, by the way? You see time over on the left is super tiny, but do you see that? Yeah, it's got time. Okay, keep going. All right. So here are your big ticket items to get onto land. Okay? So the first one to get onto land is you had to be able to protect the embryo in some way on land. That was the first strategy, the first adaptation that had to be acquired. Then you needed vascular tissue to get water from one area to another area, from the roots up through the shoots, all the way through. Then the next adaptation were seeds. And the seeds enclosed the embryo, protected it, aided in dispersal if you had a seed. And then the next level up there is the flower. So the flower is like the plants unzipping their pants and showing their junk. The flower is the reproductive structure. And the flower helps by attracting what? What can a flower do? Attract a bee, sure. What is a bee an example of? A pollinator, good. Now, if you are pollinated, what kind of flower do you think is prettier? Wind pollinated or animal pollinated? Animal, yeah. Those are the ones that are going to smell and be something to attract another organism to it. Okay, those are the pretty ones. The fruit, which could be around and enclose the seed, or in like a strawberry's case, the seed is on the outside of the fruit, right? Okay, but the fruit allows it so that maybe something will eat it and disperse it, or the fruit will fall to the ground and provide nutrition and nutrients in the soil where that new plant is going to grow and develop from. So these are kind of the hallmarks of the steps. So on your adaptation to land, you need to protect against desiccation. It could be using a waxy covering, which then requires openings like stomata for gas exchange. Oh, and I skipped ahead on some later adaptations. I'm going to show you these pictures first, sorry. So the first step was protecting the envelope. Try again. Protecting the no. Protecting the what? Embryo, there we go. That separates it from algae. Your second step up is vascular tissue. Got to add some pictures to show you here. Vascular tissue like xylem and phloem. Your third step up was getting seeds. Now, here's something like a gymnosperm, a pine cone. They have what's called naked seeds. The seed just sits right there. There's no fruit that's enclosing it. Okay? And then we have the fourth event would be flowers. All right, so need to protect against desiccation using waxy covering, a cuticle, which requires openings for gas exchange. Okay. And tracheids are vessels for water transport from roots to tips. They're composed of tissues, specialized structures, less surface area to volume, so then there's less water loss. And more exposure to light, greater ability to photosynthesize, but risk of mutations. And you can hide this as a diploid. You can hide this as a diploid. All right, the only other big ticket we need to hit at all in chapter 23, besides how do you get onto land, is alternation of generations. Have we talked about this before? Yes. Okay, so this should be a review for you. So, not it. Not it. I have two pictures. One of you is going to go first, one of you is going to go second, so decide, go. Explain this picture. Next. Other bio, buddy. Go for it. All right, let me give you some notes on this as a review. Alternation of generations. All land plants have a life cycle that consists of 2 multicellular stages called alternation of generations. The 2 stages are is it a haploid or diploid gametophyte? Haploid. Haploid gametophyte, which produces gametes, and the diploid sporophyte, good, which makes spores by meiosis. Haploid gametophyte, which produces gametes, and the diploid sporophyte, which makes spores by meiosis. The haploid spores develop through mitosis into the haploid gametophyte. Gametophytes produces gametes, which will fuse and form a diploid zygote that will undergo mitosis to form the sporophyte. The zygote develops within the tissue. Remember, that was the first step I told you on to get on land, is to develop and be protected, have the embryo protected. Develops within the tissues of the female parent, deriving nutrients from it. For this reason, land plants are sometimes referred to as embryophytes. As land plants move from water to land, the sporophyte generation, is the sporophyte generation diploid or haploid? Diploid, good. The sporophyte generation has become the dominant generation. And if you go back to 1D above, when you're on land, you're exposed to more light, you run the risk of more mutation. So if you have two copies of the gene, right, then that's more protected, okay, if you're a diploid organism. Okay, and then this picture, I put it in your notes for you. I did that a few times in this lesson. I just added some good ones. So you can see the sporophyte gaining ascendancy. The exception to that is the moss, where the gametophyte is the dominant generation. Okay, and then that's going to be it for chapter 23. And we're going to move on to chapter 24, which I just put it's all in the same group shared notes. Seizure time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh. Sporophytes make spores. Gametophytes make gametes. Say it again. Sporophytes make spores. Gametophytes make gametes. What are the only diploid ones in the cycle? What? What? What are the only diploid ones in the cycle? Sporophytes, and where did sporophytes come from? From zygotes, right? Zygotes are diploid, sporophytes are diploid, and then the sporophyte undergoes meiosis, okay, to make your haploid spores, okay? Let me go back one more picture for you, okay? So here's the zygote. It does mitosis to make the sporophyte. There could be a region of the sporophyte called the sporangium that undergoes the meiosis to make spores or haploid. They do mitosis, exact copies, to make the gametophyte. The gametophyte is haploid. The gametophyte makes haploid gametes. 2 gametes get together through fertilization to form the diploid zygote. Do you think you need to be familiar with that alternation of generations?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. What's wrong?
I get it.
You get it now? Okay, Swedish. All right. One more. Good job, Notorious B.I.G. Wonderful. Okay, moving into chapter 24, flowering plants, structure and organization. First things first, let's see what we know. What do you think this is right here? What? What do you think that is?
A frog with red fingers.
It's a root. It's an above ground root, and it's called a prop root. What do you think it does? Props you up. What are these?
Leaves.
Huh. Those are leaves. Here you can see root and shoot system. Do you know what this is? It does look like a comet. It's fuzzy things. What would fuzzy things increase? Surface area. These are called root hairs. And this is a root with hairs on it. If you increase the surface area, you can absorb more water, nutrients. Good. Do you know what this is?
A burnt potato chip.
A burnt potato chip. APBio, mister. What is this? This is varsity. What is this? Trunk. Okay. Now, when you look at this, it's called a woody stem. The bulk of this right here, this is not living tissue in the sense that the xylem that generates this is dead, and it's just helping with support. Now, this part right here, you don't have to memorize this part anymore, okay? But this would be what a monocot root would look like. When you look at how things evolved, okay, we're trying to get up to angiosperms. If we look right here, I talked to you about this. The very first thing you had to do was protect your what? Embryo. Algae don't protect their embryo, so they're off here to the side. Okay, now we're going to get another trait. What is this right here? Vascular tissue. Non-vascular plants, bryophytes, don't have that, so we drop them off. And we're going to continue forward. Everybody else has vascular tissue. Seeds, seedless vascular plants like a fern does not have seeds, so he gets dropped off. But everybody else has seeds. And then angiosperms have the addition of a what? Flower. And that's what this chapter is about, is flowering plants. Okay? So on your notes, the very first thing about it talks about the different types of tissues, plant tissues. It's a little bit funny, right? I had to look at a lot of Kleenex boxes till I found one with flowers on it. Take a moment. Plant tissues. Okay. So there are different types of plant tissues. Meristematic tissues are undifferentiated tissues. Undifferentiated tissues. Now, when they mature, they can form 3 different types of tissues, okay? But meristematic tissues, some areas like in bamboo, you have areas where they remain meristematic so that they can grow. So you can find them in, obviously in all plants, but in eudicots, and we talked about monocots, dicots a little bit. Have I used those words before? It's a type of flowering plant. They have some areas that always stay meristematic, so they can continue to grow besides the roots and the shoots. So the primary meristems can form 3 types of tissues. Here are the 3. Some of these you would be able to figure out. Dark-shirted bio buddy, start explaining. Go.
Okay.
Okay, so of your meristematic tissues, protoderm, what do you hear in protoderm? Yeah, so that's going to be your epidermal layer. Procambium, that is going to form your vascular tissues like your xylem and your phloem. Your ground tissue, I'm going to review these 3. There are 3, repeat after me. Parenchyma. Parenchyma. Collenchyma. Sclerenchyma. Parenchyma. Collenchyma. Sclerenchyma. Perfect. Okay, so those are your ground tissues. And we'll go over those. Here, These are your dermal tissues. The very first one, the protoderm, becomes like things like epidermis. We looked at root hairs. That's what's right here. This right here allows for gas exchange and transpiration. What is that? Stomata. Good. Stomata in stems are called lenticels. So just little places for gas exchange in stems. These right here are called trichomes. These are, if you've ever come across stinging nettle, they can have little poisons or toxins in them that would be protective. Here's a close-up of some trichomes. That would be an adaptation for land and protecting themselves. So the ground tissue, there are 3 different types. The most common type is called parenchyma. Looks like parenchyma. If you took a plant, put it in a blender, and pulled out one cell, you're probably pulling out a parenchyma cell. It could be used for storage, nutrition in an apple. It could be the base of the plant in its leaves. Parenchyma, if you eat celery, you're eating parenchyma. These have hardened edges. They have thickened walls that are helpful for structure. And then sclerenchyma are dead at maturity. These are things like walnuts, the seeds. You can't bite into this. It's hard, but it serves a purpose to protect the embryo within. But if you eat a pear and the hard part in the center of the pear, that's also sclerenchyma. And then the last one are vascular tissues. You have xylem for transporting water. And here's some xylem here, and we're going to hit that in a later chapter, chapter 25. And you have phloem, which is for transporting sugars. Okay, and that's a summary of the tissue types. I want to give you the notes on that. Epidermal tissue is covered with waxy cuticles. Root hairs increase surface area. Root hairs increase surface area. Trichomes are hairs that protect a plant. Stomata are openings for gas exchange. Max, if you're chatting in the back, it makes it hard for me to communicate. Ground tissue, parenchyma is your standard cell. Parenchyma, thicker walls, gives support. You would see it in celery. Sclerenchyma, thickest of all, parts of fibers, sclerids, nutshells, and are dead at maturity. Xylem, made out of sclerenchyma, transports water. And phloem, which is made out of parenchyma, is for nutrient transport. See if you can get this question. It's really, really hard. Do your best. Yay! Okay, we will start here next time. Make good choices.